This is something I was reflecting this morning on the difference between, um, how should we say, spiritual teachings, yogic teachings, and other teachings. And I think one of the main differences is that in spiritual teachings we're not really concerned with information. Actually, as we know on the internet these days and other sources, there's so much information. It's almost mind blowing. Actually, it's lots of inspiring stuff, lots of information. But yoga and spiritual teachings are not really about information. They're about obliging us or helping us to find a deeper perspective within ourselves. They're very, very different, actually. The main function is to encourage us to identify on a deeper level so that we can change our perspective of what we are and our place in life. So that's something I wanted to start off with. In a minute, we'll be repeating what we did. It's the very basics of the Vigyana Bhairava, and this is the where we create this space, this Dwadashanta, this virtual space around our physical body. The important thing is here that for the first 23, 24 verses, the person who's looking for answers, and in the context of this text, it is Bhairavi. She's kind of done a lot of study. She's learned all kinds of systems, and she's very learned. And in this context, it is a she, actually. It could be a he. It's nothing to do with gender, to be honest. And she's got this theory and that theory. And what she says is, I've got all this knowledge. I've studied the text. I've studied yoga and all the rest of it. But I still feel lost. And therefore, Bhairava, in this case, the teacher, says, yeah, these are practices I'm going to give you. And in case she gets bored, there's 112 of them. So there's no end to it. Keep you busy for a few years at least. Bhairava, the teacher, said, these are practices which will take you to an understanding which is beyond concept, which is beyond being learned and learning facts and figures and systems and so forth. So that's where most of us start. I mean, we start to think, what's all this about? And because we're intellectual creatures and we've been conditioned to try and understand through thinking, so we start to read the texts and we start to try and understand with our mind. But it's not a cop-out, actually, but in yoga, and particularly in this Vigyana Bhairava Tantra, which is part of Tantra, of course, you can't use the mind. It's trying to find a way of accessing something which is not determined by the mind. So probably Bhairava's situation applies to everyone here. We're trying to understand our place in life and what we are by thinking. And it doesn't lead anywhere. It just gives us a headache. And it's not a cop-out. We're not denying the importance of thinking and concepts. Not at all. We are conceptual creatures, and concepts and theories have given us technology, and all the rest of it has given us what we have today in terms of comfort and standard of life, quality of life, no question. But for spiritual teachings, and this is impossible to ask because we will always try and think it through. But these practices are so good, they put us in a position where even if we're still thinking, it will give us that perspective, that spaciousness, where we can kind of get a handle. We can actually tune in to something which is not dependent on thought or concept. So this is really important. Having said it, it's not going to change anything because we do think and we try and understand things by thinking. But I wanted to get that across to you. But all of you being yoga practitioners will know that in your practice, if it's daily or every week or whatever it is in a class, there comes a point where there's a shift and you will be in a certain space which has not been orchestrated by your thinking. I think that's very clear to all of you. If it's not, we can discuss it when we do the questions and answers session a bit later. But everyone knows there comes a kind of a jump, and you can't see where the jump is. It's like when we go to sleep at night, we actually don't know at what point we fall asleep. So it's the same with the practice. When you do your practice in these Vigyana Bhairava practices, where suddenly you're doing the practice, mind is thinking, and then bang, mind may still be thinking, but you're in this different state, I would say. So this is the way they're really magical, actually. I am very fond of these practices, as you can imagine. They're really, really good. They're really practical. They try and get us out of our habitual mode of thinking. Not that we're denying thinking, but it's trying to get a deeper perspective. So there's a very beautiful dharana. Remember, these are called dharanas. Dharana means practice. Focus, it means focusing on the practice that is being prescribed. And this dharana 48, if you've got it in front of you, you'll see, it says, meditate on the delight which arises on meeting a friend or relative after a long time. Be absorbed in the energy which is so created. It's a beautiful one, actually. And I want to change it slightly because we're in this pandemic lockdown, and we're separated from things that we would probably, well, certainly do normally. We're having to change our mode of thinking. So let's do that. So we close our eyes. And generally when we meet someone and we haven't seen them for a long time, we're kind of we're lost in the emotion, which is normal. We're lost even in expectation, possibly, almost certainly again. And therefore we miss the extraordinary energy which may be created where one energy field, your energy field, meets another energy field, the energy field of the other. So try to imagine that you're meeting a friend or relative who you haven't seen for a while, maybe because of the lockdown, you've been obliged to spend time away from each other. You may be Skyping and so forth, or Zooming, or phoning. Imagine that you are meeting your friend, your relative, and you are hugging him, her. And instead of being focused on the energy, on the emotion, or the expectation, or the blah blah, how you're doing, blah blah blah, focus on the energy which is created by the meeting of these two energy fields. And then we can change it slightly to, and I think this is really important at this time, where you know someone is lonely or feeling alienated, and you imagine that you are meeting them and giving them a hug or sharing with them, giving them your support. And this is an important part of yoga, spirituality, tantra, where we actually appreciate others. After all, we are all in the same drama of life. Each role is different, that's for sure, but we're all on the same stage, the stage of the world. And the fact that we are on this stage as embodied beings is something that is absolutely extraordinary and something probably we do not appreciate enough. So appreciate this person who is obliged to self-quarantine or stay alone. Give them a hug. Let them know that they are appreciated. And of course, we could spend the whole session on this kind of practice where you choose different people. There's so many people you know who you could give a good hug through the ether and let them know that you care. And I do believe, I don't know if you do, but I certainly know actually from my own experience that when we have good feelings to someone through the ether, an effect is felt. It may not be felt consciously by the other person, but there is an effect actually. We are not as separate as we think. So this is a practice you can practice every day. Hugging may not be good physically, may not be a good idea. It depends, of course. But certainly through the ether, you can hug as many people as you wish and let them know that you are thinking of them. And when we do start functioning normally, whatever that is, and you do get the chance of meeting a friend or relative, maybe hugging them, try to be in the moment to appreciate the energy that is so created. Right, now you can move your body a little bit. And we come to the concept of the Dwadashanta, which is fundamental to the Vigyana Bhairava. It's quite unique, actually. I don't know of any text that uses this concept. So Dwa means 2, and Dash means 10, and 2 plus 10 is 12. Anta means extremity. It means the extremity or the distance of 12 finger widths. So this is the meaning of the Dwadashanta. Strictly speaking, it means the distance from any part of your body outwards, 12 finger widths. And we'll explain that in a second. And many of the practices depend on this. And this is why I always introduce it to start. Not all of them, maybe half of them, or maybe 40% of the 112 dharanas, they use this concept of the Dwadashanta. In strict terms, it really means the Pranayama kosha, which most of you know, I'm sure, the energy field, also known as the bioplasmic body. And this can be measured also, nothing to, we don't need to accept it. We can measure it with scientifically, and in our own experience, we can feel it and get in touch with it. And the beauty of it is, it gives us another perspective in running our lives. Because we take the limit of our embodiment to be the skin. Of course, we perceive through the senses, that's true. But we kind of take everything outside of the skin, outside of the body is external. But this brings another perspective because it's saying even beyond the body, there is something which is still you as an embodied being. And this is symbolized, represented by the Dwadashanta. So let's do it. Some of you will know it very well. You don't need to raise your hands. And the raising of hands in this position is called the Bhuchari Mudra. And it's very pretentious. It's the Bhu, means earth, Chari, moving, the earth moving Mudra, the earth moving gesture. And yeah, it sounds a bit over the top. I mean, doing this is not going to move the earth. But the implication is, of course, that by doing this and doing the practice which is involved by this simple practice, we can shift actually our relationship with the world, with life, those around us, and with things around us. Actually, it's a way of shifting our perspective. So let's do it. You put your hands in front of your nose, side by side. That gives us 10. If you've got 12 fingers, you don't need to do the rest, but I think most of us have got 10 fingers. So 10 finger widths, and then we need 2 more. So either we push with the thumb against the nose to create a bigger space, more space to give 2 finger widths, or we extend the little finger outside, again about 2 finger widths. So in either case, we've got this distance. It is arbitrary, obviously. You'll be thinking, well, who says it's at that distance? It's very arbitrary. And if we become more sensitive, then we don't need to assume or presume that it is 12 finger widths. So in this position, we focus on the little finger tip. Total focus is on the fingertip, little fingertip. And if you'll see that in the background, you may see a double image, and things in the background should be blurred. That's how it should be, because we are focusing on the little fingertip, which means everything else goes out of focus. Then lower your hands, but keep your focus. And this is not so easy actually, but it comes with practice. You keep your focus where your little finger was. And if it's done correctly, the objects in the background will still remain blurred. Double vision even. And then, of course, there's a tendency for the eyes to focus. That's the way they're designed. So let's raise the hands again and start again. Focus on the little finger tip. And this alone tends to calm down the mind, actually. The thinking tends to diminish. And then when you're ready, lower your hands, keeping your focus where your little finger was. And I would really strongly suggest that if you can't do it, that you practice it so that you can easily focus your attention, your eyes on this point, 12 finger widths out. The thing about this is it represents the energy field, the pranamaya kosha, bioplasmic body. It represents this field of energy around our physical body, but it also represents a sense of spaciousness. Automatically, if you focus at that point, you should feel a spaciousness around the body, of course, but also within the body, actually. Let's try this, keeping your attention at this point. Trying to feel this sense of spaciousness. In fact, the spaciousness aspect is more accessible than the energy aspect. This is not Trataka, so you don't need to look with unblinking eyes. The aim is really just to keep the focus of your attention on this distance, 12 finger widths from your physical body. And not only in front of your nose, but elsewhere also. We can take this Dwadasanta like a cocoon of space or a cocoon of energy. And you can close your eyes and continue this practice, trying to focus, to feel actually this cocoon of space, the Dwadasanta, feeling this cocoon of space around your physical body. And the extraordinary thing is too that this does lead to a perception of energy, and it releases energy actually. We can find that our vital energy is lifted. But for the moment, with your eyes closed, but keeping your focus externalized, 12 finger widths from the physical body outside, and not only in front of your nose, but in all directions from the physical body. That this is applicable not just when we're sitting down as we are now, but it's applicable in our daily life. So that when we're in any situation, and we don't need to go cross-eyed, if we're in a situation, maybe a stressful situation actually, by being in touch with this Dvarashanta, we get a different perspective. It may be not as stressful, and we may be able to access another way of acting rather than reacting. So it's applicable in daily life, and I'd really like you to apply this in your daily life, because this is what these practices are about. They're ways of encouraging us so that our life is not an obstruction to our spiritual path, but it is part of our spiritual path. So by doing this kind of practice, we can't do asana all day, and we can't do pranayama all day, and we probably can't do this all day, but it's more accessible. We can do it pretty much anywhere. No one knows that you are being in touch with the Dvarashanta, only yourself. So yeah, as part of this course, I would really like you to try this out in a few different situations in your life to see how it brings any change of perspective. So there's two practices there. One we did earlier on, meeting friends either through the ether or physically, of course, and using that as an appreciation of seeing your friend or relative, but also being in touch with the energy that is created. And energy is created actually, but we tend to miss it. And this one here is sitting down. It's a practice in its own right. And in fact, if you look at dharana number 10, which I'm going to send you, it says, experience spaciousness in any situation, in front of a wall, or in the company of a wise person. Gradually, this gives rise to, I would say, the identification with awareness. So let's do it. I'm sure there's a wall in front of you somewhere. I don't think anyone's practicing outside at the moment. And even if you were, it can still be done. So eyes are open. You're looking at the wall in front of you. It's easier, of course, if there's nothing on the wall, but yeah, it doesn't matter if you've got lots of things hanging on the wall, actually. So in this position, what do? We practice this Bhuchari Mudra, remember? Practice this. And if you find it easy to locate the Dwadasanta, then you needn't do it. But if you do have trouble, just raise your hands and locate this distance. And when you're ready, of course, lower your hands and focus on the Dwadasanta, this spacious cocoon around your physical body. And without expressly looking at the wall, also bring in somehow, whilst looking at the Dwadasanta, bring in the wall into your field of vision, actually. But the focus is still on the Dwadasanta. And if you have objects, of course, on the wall, they will be double imaged. And this should give you a feeling of spaciousness, even in the wall. It doesn't mean that you can see through the wall. The wall is very much there, but there is a kind of ethereal spaciousness associated even with something as tangible and solid, seemingly solid, as a wall. Of course, it seems a bit strange for people who are not yoga practitioners, but it's not so outrageous if you think about it. I mean, science does tell us that matter, even a solid wall, is 99.9% space. If we believe these concepts, then it's atoms, buzzing around, and the majority substance of the wall of any solid object is space, actually. So it's not so outrageous. And what I'm not saying that justifies it, but we're trying to find a different perspective. So try it again, either by raising your hands, first of all, or just locating it, which you can actually once you've done a bit of practice. So again, keeping your focus on the Dwadasanta, allow the background wall to also come in to your field of vision, but without changing your focus from the Dwadasanta. you should find not only is there a sense of spaciousness around your physical body, but there is a sense of spaciousness even in the wall which is in front of you. So this is again a practice I would really like you to try yourself. Of course, you can't sit out on the street and sit down in front of a wall and start doing this practice because people will think you're a bit, something gone wrong in your mind. But it's a practice you can do in your own house and maybe outside where it's quiet and in the summer at least. Remember, this is a deepening. I'm not very interested in filling your minds with new information. I really want that there is a deepening, and the deepening comes through practice. You know, the world is a mysterious place, and it's far more mysterious than we think. In fact, our thinking is quite limited. And this is a way, these practices are a way of opening up to this mysterious world, this mysterious universe in which we find ourselves. And for that, we have to let go of our concepts. Doesn't mean we become foolish and we believe 6 different things, 6 impossible things before breakfast. Maybe that's a good thing also. But we have to kind of let go of our conceptual understanding of the universe because it is not actually the way that we conceive of it. So a simple practice, it can be in front of a tree, it's something solid, needn't be a wall, anything that's really solid, just practice this. And also it opens us up to insight. This is another byproduct of these kind of practices. We find we start to get in touch with our intuitive faculties. Fundamental. After all, we do have this faculty of intuition. We may not use it very much because we've been addled. Our minds have been addled by too much intellectual, factual stuff. But we can unaddle our mind. And these practices are ways of unaddling. I don't think you'll find that in the dictionary, but I think you understand. They're ways of loosening up, not that we become more foolish, but that we are enabled to start to get in touch with our intuitive faculties, which give us access to understanding and perception which we cannot access through thinking too much. Right, now we're going to go on to a very, very wonderful practice, which I like very much and which we did. We did last time, actually. And it's Dharma number 10. Sorry, number... can't find it now, hold on. Yeah, number 5. Dharana number 5, which is really an all-time favorite with me, and I think it's a favorite by many people who are practicing these dharanas. So while I'm talking a little bit, just feel free to move your body a little bit, get rid of any stiffness, to take a comfortable position. And of course, my partner on this course, Hari Om, will give you some teachings a bit later. And they will also help us to loosen up in terms of our perception. Life, according to Tantra, according to yoga also, life is can be the crucible of awakening to what we are on a deeper level. Life can be hell on earth. It can be heavenly also if we start to loosen up. So, number 5, Dharma. It goes as follows. It's a very beautiful one, actually. Visualize energy rising upwards from the Muladhara chakra, scintillating like the rays of the sun. Shakti, the energy, becomes more and more subtle until at last she, the energy is taken as she, dissolves in the Dwadasanta. We're back to the Dwadasanta again. So this is one of the 50% or 40% that is using the Dwadasanta. In fact, all of the practices that I've given so far, meeting someone, if we can maintain awareness of the Dwadasanta when we meet someone, it will be a very interesting experience for you. So give it a whirl. You probably can't meet people in the street, but you can meet people via Zoom or telephone. And when you meet them with awareness of the Dwadasanta. And as we've just done, sitting in front of a wall, or anywhere actually, but a wall is what they give in the text. Again, Dwadasanta. And this third one, which we're going to do now, it finishes with the Dwadasanta. So we can see how important it is to develop our contact, understanding of the Dwadasanta. So let's take a comfortable position, any position. I can see most of you sitting on the floor, which is great. But if you're sitting in a chair, that's absolutely no problem either. I actually like sitting on the floor because it's comfortable for me, but because it's symbolic of the fact that we are all on the same level. We're all living on this planet. We've all got our feet on the ground, and sitting on the floor, it's symbolic to us, to each of us, that we are sharing this planet on the same level as everyone. And I not only include humans, I'm including animals also, actually. It's very symbolic for me sitting on the floor. But if you're more comfortable in a chair, that is 100% perfect. Absolutely no problem. It's easy for me because I've probably spent half my life sitting on the floor. So let's close the eyes. And this is a way of generating energy. This practice is an energy generator. And it's quite magical, actually. So eyes are closed. You feel the Dwadasanta with your eyes closed, trying to feel the cocoon of space, 12 finger widths from your body in all directions, even into the floor. And then bring your attention to the Muladhara chakra. We don't need to be technically correct according to Hatha Yoga or Kundalini Yoga or Kriya Yoga. Just where your rump, where your buttocks are touching the ground, that is perfect as the arbitrary position of the Muladhara chakra. The root physical base. And then breathe out. And breathing in, there's different systems. I'm teaching it with the breath. Breathing in, feel as though your breath is moving upwards and the energy of the breath is moving upwards through the spine, if you wish, upwards, breathing in. Until it reaches the top of the head. Hold your breath for a few seconds, don't strain. And then breathe out. And feeling as though the breath and the energy is cascading like a fountain upwards and then around, bathing the Dwadasanta with the breath energy. Then, if you want to breathe normally for a few seconds, you can do. Bring your attention back to the Muladhara, where your body is touching the ground or the seat. And then breathing in. And now you can integrate Ujjayi, Pranayama, and Keturi Mudra. So breathing in, sound of the breath, and the breath as you breathe in moves up the spine. Till it reaches the top of the head. Hold your attention at that point for a few seconds. And then you breathe out, feeling that the breath and the energy of the breath moves upwards above your head and then cascades around the body, but around the Dwadasanta. Cleansing, like a shower. It's like an energy shower. Then bring your attention back to the Muladhara. If you wish to breathe normally for a few seconds, you may do so, of course. And then the third round, breathing in with Ujjayi and Keturi. You needn't do Keturi actually, but you can do it. It's up to you. Breathing in, feeling the breath moving up the spine. To the top of the head. Hold your breath at that point for a few seconds. and then breathe out so that the breath energy moves upwards. Feel as though it moves upwards above the head, and then it cascades around the Dwara Center as you breathe out. Try a few rounds by yourself. Of course, this is not a practice you can practice at work, but it is a practice you can do in your own time. And it does take us away from our constant thinking. I emphasize, I'm not against thinking. Thinking is what makes us human beings. But we have also other faculties which get drowned, so to say, by thinking. We have intuitive faculties. We have perceptive faculties which have little to do with thinking, actually. So it's trying to awaken us to a wider perspective. Right, there's a few questions coming up, but I think before we look at the questions, let's do a bit more practice. So sitting quietly, any comfortable position. And again, dharana number 26. And I will send you the text. It's a very beautiful one. It's more of a devotional one, but because the Vigyana Bhairava, it finds ways of changing our perspective in different ways, and one of them is definitely bhakti, or a sense of appreciation, a sense of or wonder. I like the word wonder. It gives a sense of wonder, the fact that we are existing on planet Earth. And of course, one's for reflection, jnana yoga. Later on, after the questions and answers, probably we will do a one which is a reflection, jnana yoga, because reflection does open us up to examining certain things, and if we look deep enough, then we can get an intuitive insight into the implication of what we are reflecting on. It's another very powerful way, actually. But the practices we've done so far are mainly meditation. It means optimizing on the situation wherever we find ourselves, whether it's doing our own practice, or whether we're sitting in front of a wall, or with people. Doesn't matter, actually. It's all grist for the mill. It's all ways of opening us up. So dharana number 26. Oh, blessed one, close your eyes and fix your attention in the heart space, the Hridaya Kasha. Therein, visualize the heart lotus. Gazing at this lotus, chant the Anahat mantra. Realize your utmost good fortune. So appreciation is there also. So let's sit quietly, eyes closed, any comfortable position, and eyes closed. And adjusting your body so that your body is as comfortable as possible. And try to feel and visualize the heart space. Try to imagine there is a big space of openness at the level of the heart. And practices working on the heart are actually very useful because they do help in many ways to take us out of constant thinking and anxiety also. Of course, everyone has their own experience, but my experience is bringing attention into the heart space is a good way of diminishing too much thinking. Another good space, of course, which I used to use a lot, is the Manipur space, the virtual space at the navel. It's a very good one too. But for the moment, try to get a feel for and even visualize the heart space. And in that space, try to visualize a lotus. And if you can't visualize, don't worry, you can just think of a lotus. Of course, in the Western world, we don't get lotuses, we get water lilies. But I actually think we can adapt this practice to you visualizing any flower, your favorite flower actually, whether it's a rose or a primrose or a snowdrop or anything you wish. Something that really you like and somehow it symbolizes in its majesty, in its vulnerability, and the mystery of existence. So this flower, which has as a lotus, of course, has lots of symbolic meanings in yoga. Water lily, rose, primrose, whatever you like, and visualize that in your heart space. And appreciate this wonder, the wonder of the flower and the wonder of your existence, your embodied existence. And of course, the wonder of everyone's existence. Appreciate this time on planet Earth as an opportunity, despite all the ups and downs and challenges as an opportunity to tune into and identify with the very basis of what we are as embodied beings. And if you can't feel that sense of wonder, then chant a mantra. It can be your personal mantra if you have one. It can be anything of your choice. Om, Gayatri. As I've said many times, appreciation or a sense of wonder, awe, it renders us open, actually, open to this moment, and thereby open to intuition. So this is a practice you can do again at any time. Very simple, very effective. And you will see in your daily life, whether you're at home, whether you can venture out, you will find things that really stop you in your tracks. If you are really alert to each moment, if we're kind of stuck in our head, we can be in the most beautiful countryside scenery and we're not really seeing anything. But if we look carefully, we'll see that even if we go for a walk around the block, there will be something that really stops us if we're really, really watching. And I mentioned the other day in a satsang, I think, that until a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, we had these 3 red roses outside the house, and they were still in full bloom, even though it's gone past to the middle of winter, it was still there. And every time I came through the door or I went through the door, it was an opportunity. They reminded me of feeling this extraordinary appreciation. But if you go for a walk today, or if you walk around the garden or walk around the room, I don't know your situation, you will see something that just catches your attention. It may be a red squirrel or a grey squirrel. Here there's some red squirrels. But a squirrel, I saw a red squirrel the other day, a baby one, and it was oblivious to me looking through the window. And it was almost in a state of meditation. It was absolutely stationary. So you will find something. It may be a hanging cobweb with drops of dew on it. It could be the new buds of trees getting ready for the off in spring. Things that stop us in our tracks so that we think, yes, wow, there are things here which are far more extraordinary than my thinking, what I think, my concepts, my belief systems. Let's have a look at the the questions here.
There's a first question, Swami, that's it came to me, but so I'll read it out to you as opposed to everybody, so you can't see it.
Okay.
Can a child be naturally experiencing the Dwadashanta when you see him or her with an unfocused gaze, seemingly lost in thought?
I think so. I can't remember when I was really, really young. Obviously, probably none of us can. But I think when we're really young, we're living in this magical land where we're not, the mind is not cluttered by concerns, by anxieties. It's not cluttered by ambitions. It's a kind of a pristine state, you know. Ideally, of course, unless the child is in a home which is not supportive. I mean, if that's the case, then it's a nightmare. But most kids live in supportive families, and I think they live in this magical land of just being in the moment. They say, don't they, that a baby is in this oceanic state, and I really think that is probably true. There's no concepts. They're not thinking, you know, about philosophical concepts or the chakra system or the kosha system, or no, they're just there in that moment, and it's possible without ever defining it, because you know, a baby's not going to say, "Oh wow, I'm so happy I'm seeing the Dwadashanta." It won't be like that, but without actually verbalizing it, they are probably, and I can't be sure of this, they are probably in that state. Some of you will have much more insight into this than myself, I'm sure, especially mothers. And sometimes kids come up with extraordinary insights too. And you know, when they're a bit older and they can verbalize something, they're often really very, very focused. So yeah, I think without being able to verbalize it, young kids probably they are in this energetic state. They don't define it as being 12 finger widths from the nose, or they don't define it in any way, but I'm sure they are bathing in this energy, this spacious energy. And you know, I'd like your feedback on that, because yeah, I would really like if anyone's got any memories of it, which is probably doubtful, or if you've got any feedback from you know, young kids, young babies that you have seen. But they do say when the ego starts to click in, as it does 2, 3, 4 years of age, then our whole perception changes. Because then when the ego clicks in, as it has to, we do need the ego, of course, to function. When the ego clicks in, then we start to identify exclusively as young children, we identify almost exclusively with the physical body, right? Young kids are quite physical, very physical. They are identifying with their physical body when the ego kicks in. But prior to that, yeah, I would think they're very, very spacious, given the opportunity. So yeah, that's what I think. Any feedback is welcome. And there's a question here. I find the 10-finger Dwadashanta limiting. Yeah, it is limiting. And if you can expand it, not using it, you don't need to use it. As the question continues, is it this narrow to keep a separation between us and the observed? Oh no, it's not to create a separation. It's the opposite. You're not creating armor. You know, you're not creating a barrier. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get into a more spacious relationship with whatever is going around us. And that spacious relationship, it breaks down barriers more than creating them. So yeah, it seems, in a sense, it kind of seems I'm creating a barrier around myself, but it's not quite like that. You're actually trying to improve the connection so that there is not a sense of there being a barrier. Having said that, I haven't read the rest of the question. Having said that, there may be times in our lives when we are particularly sensitive, when we probably do need that kind of barrier. In which case, in my opinion, the Dwadashanta can be adapted. And remember, these teachings came from Kashmir, and probably not much social interaction, and there wasn't much need to have a protection device there, protective device. But there are periods in our lives as we go a bit deeper and we become more sensitive, and I've certainly experienced this, where we actually need this kind of protection. Otherwise, we can get bamboozled or battered by people's emotion. You know, we're too vulnerable. So it's a way of kind of protecting from being too vulnerable for a period of time, not permanently. That is not the way. For a period of time. And then when we change within so that we are more fluid and we don't get hit and flattened by others' energies or emotions, then we can let go of any kind of protective device. But it can be useful. But that is not the reason for the Dwadashanta. We can adapt it if we need it for certain periods in our life. Many of you may have already experienced this. Some of you may not. But that's not the prime reason in the Dwadashanta. The prime reason in the Vigyana Bhairava is to improve our connection, actually. And the improvement in this connection is by allowing us not to exclusively identify with our physicality. We do, but there is more of an osmosis with whatever is taking place in front of us. So that is the reason for it, actually. And yeah, if you don't like it, it's not everyone's cup of tea. If you find that having this in front is an obstruction, then just try to feel it as an energetic connection, not separation, an energetic, spacious connection with whatever is in front of you, another person, an animal, flower, tree, nature, whatever. Or can we extend this energy field to encompass all we perceive? Absolutely. That is really what we're trying to open up to. So it may seem like a barrier or a protective device, but actually it's not. It's to open us up so that we move out of exclusive identity with our individuality, so that we open up to what is in front of us. The book Insight into Reality, the Tantra, okay, that's the information about my book. You can get it, if you so wish, from the ashram. Where is this available? Yeah, from the ashram. There is an Amazon download Kindle version too, but the hard copy you will get from the ashram direct. It's been newly printed, so there's lots of copies there. Okay, I see. Where is this available? I've only found a Kindle version on Amazon. Yeah, the hard copy you will get directly from the ashram. If you send them an email or something, they will organize it for you. We're not out of stock, I know very well. So yeah, directly from the ashram for a hard copy, a Kindle version, Amazon. And once we quieten the mind, we have this sense of spaciousness, and also, and this is the experience of everyone sitting here, we feel this joy. When the mind is peaceful, we get a feeling of joy, and it's not dependent on having a bar of chocolate or having a beer or something. It's just a sense of joy, which is always there actually. And we need it. We need to have a dose of joy in our lives. And of course, this is why we practice yoga, because it gives us this sense of joy. It nourishes us. I say this every time I give a satsang, actually. It gives us nourishment. And when we have this sense of joy, we can face all the difficulties which are there in life. We all have difficulties. No one escapes difficulties, challenges, but we are more buoyant. When we have this sense of joy, we are more buoyant and able to face all the ups and downs, all the challenges, all the alienations, whatever, fears and all kinds of things. So it's absolutely fundamental. Each person here is like a deep well. We can access everything through our own being. Simple as that. Very simple, but theoretically very simple, but it's a lifetime's work. And I think we're all very lucky that we have been introduced to yoga and Tantra and Vigyana Bhairava, and we have these practices which inspire us on our journey within, and not only our journey within, but outside also, because they're not separate, to be honest.